Good morning one more time. This is episode number 7 of the Sage and Guide podcast. I'm your host Raju Mandia and I'm a speaker trainer coach based in the Philippines. In the last podcast, I spoke about fear in general, the roots of fear and how to manage your fear about health, wealth, and relationships. Today, in this episode, I would like to talk about how to manage stage fright, face the fear of standing up and speaking out, or standing out and speaking up, getting up on stage, behind the lectern, behind the camera, or even behind Zoom, and how to manage your fear. From the last episode, we know that fear might be rooted in our primitive past and it lays in our unconscious, and the manifestations of that fear are increased heart rate, increased pulse, shortness of breath, cold sweat, etc. Now, when it comes to the fear of public speaking, those opinions of the evolution psychologists may still apply. What may also apply are 3 other things in my opinion. The first is past trauma. That means you might have spoken up as a kid, you must have recited a poem or a story and people laughed at you and your teacher scolded you or your parents were harsh on you, and that traumatized you about performing in the presence of others, and you never wanted to perform again. You never want to undergo the same kind of embarrassment again, because it's in your bone marrow. That trauma has settled in and become part of your persona. That could be it, and that's a valid fear, and lots of psychologists may help you through it. The other one, which is my personal opinion, is the fact that many times our self-image is misplaced. That means we are not our authentic, true selves all the time, especially when we get up on stage. We become a little more synthetic, a little more brittle, a little more sensitive, because we are not aligned and congruent within our own selves. Now, your question is, how so, Raju? 2 ways. Number 1, when we are preparing to speak or when we are called up to speak, we go through a thinking process assuming that we may not be good enough to speak to a group of people. We may not be good enough for that specific group of people, that audience. Our knowledge, our experience, our know-how, our way of thinking, our language, our accent, our looks, our height, weight, what have you, may just not be good enough. And thus we are not happy with what we are, and thus we have a low self-esteem, and that can hold us back from being good and effective up on stage. For this, of course, I covered episode 4 and 5 about knowing yourself and accepting yourself. The other aspect of this low self-esteem is an inflated self-esteem, an inflated ego, false pride. This comes to people who may be successful in many other areas of their lives. They may be great thinkers, scientists, professors, businessmen, very rich, very powerful, kings and queens and actors and celebrities, presidents of countries. They can have this inflated self-ego, and sometimes they wouldn't want that to crack up because the mask they wear about self-importance might crack up. Or sometimes they might think that just because I'm such a big, popular, and huge human being, a huge, successful human being, maybe the audience is not good enough for me. Maybe they are riffraff, or their levels of understanding are not the same as mine. I'm a scientist, I'm a research scientist. So these two extremes of our self-image, the low one and the high one, the weak one and the inflated one, can sometimes get in our way, because then when we get up on stage and 100 pair of eyes or 50 pairs of eyes or thousands pairs of eyes look at you, they are kind of looking through you. They're watching your every gesture, they're listening to every change in your tone, in your pitch, and in your movement, and they're comparing it to the words you utter, and they're looking for alignment, they're looking for authenticity, and that can scare the bananas out of you. So that is my opinion. That's what happens up on stage. So those with less self-esteem hesitate, shiver, shudder, have the jitters, And those with a high self-esteem pretend not to have the jitters and the shivers and the nausea and the shortness of breath. They try to cover it up because, hey, come on, look, man, they wear a 3-piece Armani suit. How can they shiver in a 3-piece Armani suit? So they try to cover up. And I've seen this. I've seen people who try to cover up, I've seen a friend of mine, when she goes up on stage, she appears cool, calm, collected, and she's very good. But backstage, me and her friends know that when she stands behind the lectern, she's constantly kicking back her heels like a horse that's getting ready to run, a stallion that out of fright wants to take flight. But her front, her presence, her window looks good, but backstage she's kicking away. So that's how it shows up on her, and she tries to cover up. Then there's another friend of mine, good speaker, great human being. His nervousness, his anxiety, his fear comes out in a cold sweat, and he's accepted that fact, thankfully. But he picks up a towel every time he goes up on stage, finishes talking for 20, 30 minutes, comes down with a towel soaked in his sweat. Small hand towel, not a large beach towel. So that's a manifestation. In my case, my throat used to run dry. It still does sometimes, every time, sometimes if I'm like out of sync or out of step, not congruent, not authentic, not relaxed, I drink a lot of water. One time I saw a very successful, rich, and a powerful person up on stage talk. And I was sitting in the audience. I knew he was nervous. He was speaking fast, he was speaking loud, he wasn't pausing much, and he was trying to cover up and make himself look important. In fact, during his talk, there was a waiter who came by, and he was changing the dishes and moving stuff around. It was a little noisy, very slightly, ever so slightly noisy. And this man on stage screamed at him. He said, "Can you keep it down? Don't you see that I'm talking up here?" To the waiter. And that created a really lousy picture of him, lousy image of him to the audience. But I know he was afraid and he was trying to cover up. So those are the facts behind the fear of public speaking. That's how it appears. Those may be the causes. No, those are the causes, in my opinion. Trauma and a misplaced ego, inauthenticity. Now, what are the solutions? The solutions, number one is prepare. Prepare, practice, prepare, practice, prepare, practice, prepare, practice as much as you can. What will happen is that you will have muscle memory on what to do. So even if you falter, even if nervousness gets hold of you, because you have so much practice, because you know tips and techniques, and because You have muscle memory, you recover and bounce back very, very quickly, unseen by others. It's just like a good swimmer. You throw him in the ocean, he will swim back. But if you throw a very incapable swimmer into the ocean, he's not coming back because his muscle memory won't sustain him. So the brain is a muscle. Those 3 levels of brains that I spoke about in the previous episode, they're all plastic. Neuroplasticity claims that you can increase the performance of your brain through practice, through stretching it. So prepare, practice, that's the first thing. The second one is to create alignment in your 3 brains. The primitive reactive brain, the limbic emotional romantic brain, and the neocortex and the logical rational brain. Kind of let them have a conversation with each other. The conversation is, yes, I'm a little anxious. Hey, but I want to do good. I want to be kind and compassionate to my audience. I want to create value. And the third one is that, hey, I've got good stuff and everything is in place. I've done due diligence in terms of preparation. And so when these 3 brains are in alignment, in congruence, in consensus with each other, our performance increases. The third way is my favorite way. And this is my mindset. This is the mindset I create when I'm called to present, when I'm about to present, or when I prepare for a presentation. I look at the word presentation. Presentation. That means the act of giving someone a gift. The act of gift giving, presentation. So when I'm approached or when it's my turn to speak, I think that, hey, there's this beautiful audience. Let me try to understand, know them thoroughly. Let me become intimate with them even before I get up on stage, such that I know and I hear their heartbeat. I understand their needs. I see them laugh. I see them accept. I see them acknowledge. I see them react with me. I see them providing energy back to me as I speak. And I take time to prepare a gift, a present that will suit them, that will serve them, that will create value for them, that will fulfill their learning needs and their growth needs. So I've done this thing. I've studied the audience, then I work at the presentation. Of course, the presentation comes from my pool of knowledge and I add to it sometimes. Then I process and plan it and prepare and practice it. Then when I give them the gift, I'm ready. Now I know the audience, I've done enough research on my gift and I'm presenting it well. I package it well, a nice opening, a great structure, a good closing, a little humor in it, some images, some visuals, what have you, whatever is needed, whatever gimmicks are needed. When I present to them, my state of mind is calm, cool, collected, humble, caring, compassionate, full of love towards the process of gift giving and towards the recipients of the gifts that I'm giving them. And that changes me, that humbles me, that fills me with enthusiasm, with elation, with joy, with simplicity, and my performance becomes good. Of the thousands and hundreds of times that I presented, every time I didn't do this, I failed. But every time I did this process of clearing my mindset and focusing on the act of gift giving, the act of presenting, my performance improved. So those are the 3 ways to overcome your stage fright, and do this often. In time, you will realize that you'll move from incompetence, ineffectivity, from fear into calm and cool collectedness. You'll move into competence. And there'll come a time that your competence will become unconscious. Yeah, there will be times that you may still get anxious, but that's okay. The great actor, Laurence Olivier, He's not there anymore, the great Shakespearean actor Laurence Olivier. He was English, then he moved to Hollywood, but he spent his lifetime playing Shakespeare, memorizing plays, and he was the best. His name was Sir Laurence Olivier. Even he claimed to be nervous at times. 75% of the world's population accepts the fact that they have a certain amount of fear towards public speaking. And you and I are no different. We are made up of flesh, blood, and emotions. Flesh, blood, bone, and emotions, and these things can be hurt. So it is all right to be a little afraid. But when you employ prepare, practice, etc., and the act of gift giving and managing our own self-image, we will do good, and over time we will become great. That is my opinion. That is my humble opinion. I hope you like it. I hope you share it, and I hope it helps you overcome your fear of public speaking on your journey to becoming a sage and a guide, on the journey towards unleashing authenticity from within yourself and influencing excellence onto others and onto the world. My name is Raju Manthian. Until next time, adios and mabuhay. Adios and mabuhay. There you go. I hope you enjoyed this podcast and it was helpful to you. If it was, then the most helpful thing you can do is to leave your review of this podcast on iTunes and Spotify. Your reviews will keep this podcast going and serving others. It will also be great if you will share this podcast with your friends and family. And if you do need my help with your leadership development and public speaking skills, please do look me up at www.manthian.com and www.rajumanthian.com. Adios and mabuhay.